1 year into the war, the Alien Alliance controlled 15 human worlds, but their advance had ground to a halt. Every victory cost them more ships, more soldiers, and more time than they could afford. Now they faced their greatest challenge yet, the siege of New Tokyo. Humanity's industrial heart, Admiral Sung Ho stood on the bridge of the Freedom, a ship that perfectly represented what the human fleet had become. The vessel started as a simple cargo hauler, but over months of warfare it had been rebuilt with captured alien technology. Krexith armor plating covered human-designed hull sections. Vorthak energy weapons had been adapted to work with human power systems. The result was a ship that confused alien sensors and fought in ways no textbook had ever described. "Admiral," reported Captain Mi Young from the tactical station, "the alien fleet is larger than anything we've seen before. 500 ships, including the Emperor's personal dreadnought." Sung Ho studied the display showing the massive enemy formation. The Krexith Emperor Thex Moran and the Vorthak Supreme Collective had come personally to oversee what they believed would be the decisive battle. They had brought their most advanced weapons, including planet crackers capable of splitting worlds in half. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. 87 vessels of various sizes. Half are converted civilian ships. Most have mixed human-alien technology that shouldn't work but does. Dr. Jiwoo's voice came over the communication system from the engineering deck. "Admiral, our hybrid systems are stable. The alien components have been fully integrated with our designs. We're ready for whatever they throw at us." For the past year, Dr. Jiwoo had led teams of engineers in the most ambitious technology adaptation project in human history. They hadn't just copied alien designs. They had improved them by combining them with human creativity and problem-solving. "Their weapons are more powerful," she had explained to the design teams, "but they're also more rigid. They're designed to work in specific ways under specific conditions. Our weapons are weaker individually, but they're flexible. We can modify them in real time during combat." Colonel Inho coordinated the ground defenses from deep within New Tokyo's underground command center. Over the past months, his teams had turned the entire star system into the largest trap in galactic history. "Sir," reported Major Cheolsu, "all asteroid mining stations have been converted to weapons platforms. The cargo haulers are in position with their hidden armaments. Civilian transports are ready to reveal their surprise modifications." Inho nodded grimly. The plan was insane by any military standard. They had disguised weapons platforms as mining equipment, turned cargo ships into hidden missile launchers, and modified civilian transports to carry experimental weapons. If the aliens realized what they were flying into, they could destroy everything before the trap was sprung. The battle began at dawn, ship time. Emperor Thexmoran himself led the assault, his massive flagship larger than some human cities. Behind him came the most powerful fleet ever assembled by the Krexith Vorthak Alliance. "Humans," his voice boomed across all frequencies, "you have fought bravely, but your resistance ends today. Surrender now, and some of you will be allowed to live as servants." Admiral Sung Ho's response was broadcast on every human frequency. "Emperor Thex Moran, we appreciate the offer, but we'll have to decline. You see, we've been preparing a welcome party." The trap was sprung all at once. What the aliens had thought were simple mining stations suddenly revealed massive energy weapons. Cargo haulers dropped their false hulls to expose missile batteries. Even the small maintenance drones transformed into swarms of guided bombs. Pilot Kyung-soo led a squadron of fighters that had been hidden inside what appeared to be a disabled space station. "This is Ghost Squadron," he reported as his ship streamed out of their hiding place. "We're inside their formation, beginning attack run on the flagship." The aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies they hadn't even known were there. Their sensors had been fooled by human deception, and their tactical computers couldn't process what was happening fast enough. Emperor Thexmoran watched in shock as his supposedly overwhelming fleet fell into chaos. "How are they everywhere at once?" he demanded. "Unknown, Emperor," replied his tactical officer. "Our intelligence indicated only mining operations in this system. These weapons platforms weren't supposed to exist." Marine Sergeant Daun led a boarding party that had been waiting inside a captured alien vessel. For months they had posed as prisoners while actually studying the enemy ships from within. When the battle began, they struck from inside the alien formation. "This is Team Alpha," she reported as her squad took control of a Vorthak cruiser. "We have access to their tactical network, downloading their battle plans and transmitting to the fleet. The information Daun's team captured proved devastating. Within minutes, human commanders knew exactly where every alien ship was positioned and what their next moves would be. The hunters had become the hunted. But the most shocking moment came when pilot Kyung-soo made his final attack run on the Emperor's flagship. His fighter had been damaged and was losing power, but he had one last chance to strike at the heart of the enemy fleet. "Admiral," he transmitted to Sung-ho, "my ship is dying, but I can reach their command bridge. Tell my family I fought well." "Negative, Kyung-soo. Pull back and—" "Sorry, sir, but this is too important." Kyung-soo's fighter slammed into the flagship's bridge at full speed. The explosion didn't destroy the massive ship, but it did something more valuable. Before his ship was destroyed, he transmitted the exact location of the flagship's primary weakness directly to the human fleet. Commander Yuna received the transmission and coordinated the final assault. "All ships, this is Yuna. Target the flagship's main reactor housing." Coordinates transmitted by Kyung-soo. The combined human fleet focused their fire on the single weak point. Individually, their weapons weren't powerful enough to threaten the massive dreadnought. Together, firing at exactly the right spot, they punched through the alien shields and disabled the ship's main power systems. Emperor Thexmoran found himself aboard a floating wreck, surrounded by a human fleet that had appeared from nowhere. For the first time in Krexith history, their emperor was forced to consider retreat. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Supreme Collective is requesting immediate withdrawal. Their analysis indicates a 97% probability of total fleet destruction if we continue." The Emperor stared at the tactical display showing his fleet in ruins. Half his ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had somehow turned a routine conquest into the worst military disaster in Krexith history. Commander Yuna's voice came across all frequencies. "Emperor Thexmoran, you came here to conquer us. You forgot that humans have been conquering the impossible since we first looked up at the stars. We don't know how to give up, because giving up isn't in our nature." The alien alliance retreated for the first time in either species' history. As their battered fleets limped away from New Tokyo, they left behind more than just wreckage and prisoners. They left behind the growing realization that they had started a war they might not be able to win. Elder Velthara watched the battle from her hidden observation post, recording everything for the ancient Nithari archives. She had seen this pattern before, in species that had vanished long before humans had even discovered fire. The aliens had made a fundamental error. They had assumed that because humans were emotional, they were weak. They had never considered that emotions could be a source of strength rather than weakness. Love made humans fight harder to protect what mattered to them. Anger gave them the energy to keep going when logic said they should quit. Hope let them see possibilities that rational analysis missed. And stubbornness. Stubbornness made them refuse to accept defeat even when defeat seemed certain. On Earth, Ambassador Teiho received reports of the victory at New Tokyo. But he also knew the war was entering a new phase. The aliens had learned that humans wouldn't break under pressure. Now they would try different tactics. "What's our next move?" asked Commander Yuna during their secure communication. Teiho looked at the star chart showing human space. 15 worlds lost, but the enemy advance had stopped. More importantly, human fleets were growing stronger every day as they adapted alien technology to their own purposes. "Now," he said, "we stop playing defense. It's time to take the fight to them." The fire had been tested and proven unbreakable. Now it was ready to spread beyond human space, carrying with it a simple message. Some things are too stubborn to die, and too angry to stay beaten. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans stopped just defending themselves and started fighting back. The first attack came at dawn on New Busan, just as the farmers were heading to their fields. Captain Jae-sung was drinking his morning coffee in the command center of the orbital defense station when the sensors started screaming. "Captain," Ensign Dong-min called out, his voice cracking with fear. "We have massive contacts dropping out of hyperspace. 250 ships." Jae-sung set down his coffee and walked calmly to the main display. The screen showed a terrifying sight. Krexith dreadnoughts, each one the size of a city block, hung in space like metal mountains. Fourth-act crystalline ships gleamed beside them, their surfaces crackling with energy weapons. "How many ships do we have?" he asked quietly. 12, sir. The patrol squadron and some cargo haulers we armed last week." Jae-sung nodded. He had known this moment would come, but seeing it made his stomach feel heavy. 12 small ships against an armada that could destroy planets. The math was simple and brutal. His communication officer, Lieutenant Boram, looked up from her station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Krexith flagship." "Put it through." A massive reptilian face filled the screen. Admiral Zekmor's yellow eyes showed no emotion, just cold certainty. "Human defenders, you are outmatched by a factor of 20 to 1. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Your people on the surface will be relocated peacefully." Jae-sung looked around his command center. Young officers stared back at him, waiting for his decision. They all knew what the smart choice was. "Surrender, live, hope for mercy." "Admiral Zekmor," Jae-sung said, straightening his uniform. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid we'll have to decline." The alien's massive head tilted slightly. "You refuse? Have you calculated the odds of your survival?" "We don't know how to surrender," Jae-sung replied calmly. "We only know how to fight harder." Zekmor's laugh was like grinding metal. "Emotion over logic. Your species deserves extinction." The transmission cut off. "All ships," Jae-sung broadcast to his tiny fleet. "This is Captain Jae-sung. We're probably going to die today, but we're going to make them remember us. Attack Formation Alpha. Make every shot count." The battle was chaos from the first moment. Human ships darted between the massive alien vessels like angry wasps attacking elephants. Their weapons could barely scratch the alien shields, but they kept firing anyway. Ensign Dongmin piloted his fighter directly at a Krexith cruiser, firing everything he had. The alien ship's return fire vaporized his fighter instantly, but not before his missiles damaged their weapon systems. Lieutenant Boram coordinated the defense from the command station, watching ship after ship disappear from her screens. "Captain, we've lost 6 ships. The cargo hauler Incheon just rammed a Vorthak destroyer." "Did they take it down?" "Yes, sir. Both ships are gone." On the planet's surface, Engineer So-young was loading the last civilian transport when the alien landing ships appeared in the sky. Massive Krexith troop carriers descended through the atmosphere like falling meteors. "Get those people to the evacuation center," she shouted to her team. "I'll handle the defenses." "What defenses?" The colony had never been intended as a military base. It was a farming world, home to families who grew food for the expanding human colonies. But So-young had spent the last week turning farm equipment into weapons. She ran to the makeshift control station she had built in the grain silo. With quick fingers, she activated the system she had jury-rigged from tractor beam projectors and industrial lasers. The equipment was never meant for combat, but desperate times called for creative solutions. The first Krexith warriors to land were 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor scales and armed with weapons that could level buildings. They expected to find terrified farmers hiding in their homes. Instead, they found themselves caught in a crossfire from automated turrets that So-young had built from crop harvesting machines. The weapons were crude and slow, but they fired constantly, forcing the aliens to take cover. "What is this?" growled Commander Rextal into his communicator. "Intelligence said this was an agricultural world with no defenses." "It was," replied his aide. "The humans appear to have weaponized their farming equipment." Rextal watched as more of his warriors fell to improvised weapons. A group of human civilians, including children and elderly people, emerged from buildings carrying mining tools and maintenance equipment. They charged directly at his professional soldiers. "This is madness," he muttered. "They have no military training. They cannot win." But something was wrong. His warriors, veterans of a dozen conquests, were struggling against farmers and miners. The humans fought with a desperate fury that made no tactical sense. When wounded, they kept fighting. When outnumbered, they attacked anyway. When clearly defeated, they found new ways to cause damage. Back in space, Captain Jae-sung watched his last 3 ships circle the enemy fleet like sharks around a whale. His own ship, the Daegu, had lost main power and was running on backup systems. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Boram, "the aliens are requesting our surrender again." "Tell them we're still thinking about it," Jae-sung replied, then turned to his weapons officer. "Do we have any missiles left?" "2, sir. And maybe 10% power on the main guns. Then let's go say hello to their flagship." Admiral Zekmor watched in confusion as the last human ship limped toward his massive dreadnought. The little vessel was clearly dying, its hull breached in a dozen places, but it was still attacking. "Why do they not surrender?" he asked his tactical officer. "Their position is hopeless. Unknown, Admiral. Their behavior does not match any known military doctrine." The human ship fired its last missiles at the dreadnought's bridge. The weapons exploded harmlessly against the shields, but the ship kept coming. At the last second, it veered away, but not before sending a transmission on all frequencies. "This is Captain Jae Sung of the Human Defense Fleet," came the voice from the dying ship. "We may not have stopped you today, but we've shown you something important. Humans don't break. Remember that when you meet the rest of our fleet." The Daegu exploded in a flash of light, taking with it the last of New Busan's orbital defenses. On the surface, Engineer So Young made her own last stand in the grain silo. Krexith warriors surrounded the building, but she had one more surprise. She had rigged the entire facility to explode, turning tons of grain dust into a massive bomb. "This is for New Busan," she whispered, and pushed the button. The explosion could be seen from orbit. Commander Rextal stood in the smoking ruins of what had been a peaceful farming colony. His losses were far higher than predicted. Worse, he was deeply disturbed by what he had witnessed. "Sir," reported his aide, "the planet is secured." "But our casualties—" "I know," Rextal growled. "How many?" "3 ships destroyed, 7 damaged. 400 warriors killed or wounded, against farmers and miners." Rextal looked at the burning settlements around him. Victory, but at what cost? And there were 11 more human worlds to conquer. Admiral Zekmor stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the casualty reports. The battle had been won easily, but something felt wrong. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a species fight like this. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving priority messages from the Vorthak Collective. They're requesting additional ships for the next target." "Additional ships?" "We brought overwhelming force." "Yes, sir, but their analysis matrices are concerned about human behavior patterns. They're recommending we triple our assault force for the next world." Zekmor's yellow eyes narrowed. "Triple the force? For the next farming colony?" He looked out at the stars, toward human space. And for the first time in his military career, Admiral Zekmor felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. In the depths of space, Elder Velthara received reports of the battle through her hidden network. The Nethari had learned long ago to watch the galaxy's conflicts from the shadows, recording the rise and fall of civilizations. She made a note in her ancient records: "The humans have lost their first battle. The aliens believe they are winning. They do not yet understand that they have just awakened something that should have been left sleeping." The fire had been tested, and it burned brighter than ever. 2 years after the first attack on New Busan, the war had changed everything. The alien alliance that once seemed unstoppable now faced rebellions on their own worlds as news of their failures spread across the galaxy. The humans, once seen as primitive creatures barely worthy of notice, had become the most feared military force in known space. Fleet Admiral Chan Wu stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, leading humanity's first offensive strike into alien territory. The ship beneath his feet was no longer recognizably human. It was a hybrid of 3 different technologies: human innovation, captured Krexith engineering, and reverse-engineered Vorthak systems. The result was a vessel that confused enemy sensors and fought in ways that broke every rule of space combat. "Admiral," reported Captain Wan Shik from the tactical station, "we're approaching the Krexith home system. Intelligence confirms the Emperor's main fleet is defending their homeworld." Chan Wu studied the display showing dozens of human ships approaching the heart of the Krexith Empire. 2 years ago, such an attack would have been suicide. Now it was just another day in humanity's war for survival. "Any word from our people inside?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Captain Su Jin reports that the sabotage teams are in position. 2 years of captured humans have been very busy." The thought still amazed Chan Wu. Humans who had been taken prisoner hadn't just survived an alien captivity. They had studied their captors, learned their weaknesses, and spent months preparing for this moment. What the aliens had thought were broken prisoners were actually deep-cover saboteurs. Dr. Hyo Jin, now Earth's chief expert on alien psychology, stood beside him reviewing the final intelligence reports. "Admiral, our analysis confirms what Elder Velthara predicted. Both species have never encountered resistance that grows stronger under pressure. Their entire military doctrine assumes enemy morale will eventually break. And when it doesn't, they don't have backup plans. They've never needed them before." The battle for the Krexith homeworld began with something that had never happened in galactic history: an attack by the species that was supposed to have been extinct by now. Human ships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began tactics that made no sense to alien strategists. Emperor Thexmoran watched from his palace as human vessels scattered throughout his home system, refusing to form organized battle lines. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "This isn't military formation." "Unknown, Emperor," replied Admiral Zekmor, who had survived every battle of the war and learned to fear human unpredictability. "They appear to be improvising their entire attack strategy." That was exactly what they were doing. Commander Mi Young coordinated the assault from her hybrid destroyer, but instead of following a rigid battle plan, she was making up tactics in real time based on what she saw happening. "All ships, this is Mi Young. The alien fleet is trying to surround us, so let's not be where they expect. Scatter formation, Charlie. Make them chase us through their own defensive positions." The human fleet broke apart like a school of fish avoiding a predator, but each fish was armed with weapons that could destroy capital ships. They darted between the Krexith defense platforms, using the aliens' own installations as cover while striking at vulnerable targets. Captain Wanshik led a squadron of fighters that had been built from spare parts and pure stubbornness. His ship was part human engineering, part alien technology, and part desperate innovation. It shouldn't have been able to fight against purpose-built Krexith warships, but it did. "This is Strike Team Alpha," he reported as his fighters wove between enemy fire. "We're using their asteroid mining operation as cover. Their own workers are getting in the way of their defensive fire." The Krexith had never faced an enemy that would use civilian areas as battlefields. Their rigid military thinking couldn't adapt to humans who treated every piece of space debris as a potential weapon and every civilian installation as tactical terrain. But the real surprise came from within the Krexith fleet itself. Captain Sujin, who had escaped from alien captivity 2 years ago, had left behind more than just intelligence. She had left behind human prisoners who had spent 2 years learning everything about alien technology while pretending to be broken and defeated. "This is sabotage. Team 1, came a transmission from inside a Krexith dreadnought. "We have control of their main computer systems. Beginning shutdown of their defensive shields." Engineer Bonhois' voice joined the communication network from another alien ship. "Sabotage Team 2 here. We've figured out how to overload their power systems. Give us 5 minutes and this ship will be drifting dead in space." The aliens discovered that their prisoners had never been prisoners at all. They had been students, learning alien technology from the inside while waiting for the perfect moment to strike. 2 years of captivity had turned into 2 years of preparation. Technician Hayrim had spent 18 months aboard a Vorthak crystalline ship, pretending to be a broken human, while actually studying their collective consciousness networks. "Sabotage Team 3 ready," she reported. "I can disrupt their entire tactical coordination system. They'll lose communication between ships." Emperor Thexmoran watched in horror as his supposedly impregnable fleet fell apart from within. How are they everywhere? How did they get inside our ships? The answer was simple but terrifying. Humans didn't just fight their enemies. They learned from them, adapted to them, and eventually became better at being their enemies than the enemies were themselves. Admiral Zekmor, the veteran of every major battle in the war, finally understood what they were facing. "Emperor, we must retreat. These creatures, they don't just resist conquest. They turn conquest itself into a weapon." "Retreat? From our own homeworld?" "Sir, we have lost 60% of our fleet. Their saboteurs have disabled our command structure. And," Zekmor paused, struggling with words that went against everything he had been trained to believe, "I believe they are better warriors than we are." The admission was devastating. The Krexith had built their empire on the belief that they were the galaxy's ultimate predators. To admit that humans were superior fighters meant acknowledging that their entire civilization was based on a lie. The Vorthak Collective was experiencing something even worse: the complete breakdown of their logical matrices. Collective Node Prime sent desperate communications to the remaining Vorthak ships. "Human behavior cannot be calculated. Our prediction systems are failing. Recommend immediate withdrawal from all combat zones." For a species that lived by pure logic, the existence of humans represented an unsolvable equation. They could not understand beings who became more dangerous the more desperate they became. Elder Velthara observed the battle from her hidden location, making final notes in the ancient Nethari records. She had seen this pattern before, in species that had vanished millions of years ago. but never had she seen it executed with such precision and creativity. "The humans have learned the most dangerous lesson in the galaxy," she recorded. "They have discovered that their emotions are not weaknesses to be overcome, but weapons to be wielded." The battle ended when Emperor Thex Moran broadcast his surrender on all frequencies. For the first time in Krexith history, their emperor was admitting defeat to a supposedly inferior species. "Humans," his voice carried the weight of a broken empire, we yield. Your species has proven itself worthy of respect." Fleet Admiral Chan Wu accepted the surrender, but his response carried a warning that would echo across the galaxy. "Emperor, we didn't fight for your respect. We fought because you made the mistake of threatening our families. Remember that the next time someone tells you humans are weak because we feel emotions." 5 years later, human space had expanded far beyond its pre-war borders. The galaxy had learned to respect the species that turned disadvantage into victory, and desperation into determination. Other alien species now sought human alliance, not because of their technology, but because of their unbreakable will. Ambassador Taeho stood in the new Galactic Council chambers, built to replace the one destroyed in the war. Around him sat representatives of dozens of species, but now the humans were no longer treated as primitive newcomers. They were treated as the species that had proven something important about the nature of strength. Captain Hyunwoo, now commanding a joint human-alien patrol fleet, reflected on the war's final lesson as he watched his mixed crew work together. Humans, Krexith, Vorthak, and others served side by side, united by mutual respect rather than fear. "They thought our emotions made us weak," he said to his Krexith first officer, who had learned to appreciate human unpredictability. "They never realized that our emotions make us unbreakable." The officer, a veteran of the war named Rextal, nodded slowly. "Your species taught us something we had forgotten, Captain. The strongest warriors are not those who feel nothing, but those who fight for something they love more than their own lives." In her final message before joining the cosmic consciousness of her ancestors, Elder Velthara wrote, "In all my millennia, I have seen species rise and fall based on their understanding of strength. Most believe strength comes from size, technology, or numbers. The humans prove that true strength comes from something far more dangerous: the absolute refusal to accept defeat when fighting for what matters most." The massive space station called Vega Prime hung in the darkness between stars like a glowing city. Inside its grand council chamber, representatives from dozens of alien species sat in a perfect circle. The room buzzed with the sounds of different languages being translated through universal communicators. Ambassador Taeho adjusted his simple blue uniform and looked around the chamber. As the only human in the room, he felt very small. The Krexith delegates towered above everyone else, their reptilian scales gleaming under the bright lights. Their yellow eyes showed nothing but cold calculation. Across from them sat the Vorthak, beings made of living crystal that hummed with electrical energy when they spoke. For 3 hours, the council had been discussing trade routes and mining rights. Taeho had said very little. Earth was still new to galactic politics, having only joined the council 5 years ago. Most species treated humans like children who had just learned to walk among the stars. Everything changed when Krexith Admiral Zekmor stood up. His massive frame cast a shadow across half the chamber. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "The Krexith Empire has an announcement," he said. "We have formed an alliance with the Vorthak Collective. Together we will bring order to the chaotic Outer Rim sectors." The chamber fell silent. Even the universal translators seemed to pause. Taeho felt his heart rate increase. The Outer Rim was where most human colonies were located. A Vorthak representative, its crystal body flashing with blue light, added in a voice like singing metal, "The human infestation in sectors 7 through 19 must be cleansed. Their emotional chaos disrupts the natural order of space." Taeho stood up quickly, his chair scraping against the floor. "With respect, those are sovereign human territories. We have legal claims to those worlds." Admiral Zekmor turned his massive head toward Taeho. His laugh was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Legal claims? You barely understand fire, let alone space law. Your species discovered faster than light travel by accident. You build ships with metal and hope instead of proper engineering." The Vorthak representative's crystal body brightened. "Emotional creatures cannot comprehend logical expansion. Your presence creates inefficiency in the cosmic pattern." Other species around the chamber shifted uncomfortably, but none spoke up. The Krexith and Vorthak were the two most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Their combined fleets could destroy entire star systems. After the session ended, Taeho walked quickly through the station's corridors. His hands shook as he sent an urgent message to Earth. Commander Yuna would need to know about this immediately. He was still walking when a shadow fell across his path. Taeho looked up to see one of the strangest beings in the galaxy. The Nethari were ancient, so old that most species considered them myths. This one was tall and thin with skin like old paper and eyes that seemed to hold the memory of 1,000 worlds. Ambassador Taeho, the being said in perfect English, "I am Elder Velthera. We must speak." They found a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars. Velthera moved slowly, as if each step carried the weight of millions of years. "Your species is in great danger," she said without introduction. "The Krexith and Vorthak have never allied before. They fear something." "Fear?" Taeho asked. "They just called us an infestation. What could they possibly fear from us?" Velthara's ancient eyes studied him carefully. "They fear what they do not understand. In my long life I have seen species like yours before. You burn with something the galaxy has forgotten." "I don't understand." "Passion," Velthera said simply. "Love, anger, hope, stubbornness. Most species grow cold as they advance. They choose logic over feeling, efficiency over spirit. Your people still burn with the fire that builds civilizations." Taeho felt confused, but that's what they call our weakness. "They say emotions make us chaotic and unpredictable." "Yes," Velthera nodded. "They do not understand that fire can create as well as destroy. They see your emotions and think you are weak. They have forgotten that the strongest metals are forged in the hottest flames." Meanwhile, billions of kilometers away, Commander Yuna stood in the command center of the Human Defense Fleet headquarters on Luna. The message from Taeho had arrived 30 minutes ago, and already the entire command staff was working frantically. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" she asked her aide, Captain Jae Sung. 47 vessels and the main fleet commander, maybe 30 more scattered across the colonies. Most are patrol ships and cargo haulers with basic weapons. Yuna closed her eyes. The intelligence reports had been clear. The Krexith Empire alone had over 1,000 warships. The Vorthak Collective had almost as many. Together they could destroy human space in a matter of weeks. "What about our new colonies?" she asked. 12 worlds with major populations. New Busousan has almost 2 million civilians. They have no military defenses except a few patrol ships. Dr. Minho, the chief xenobiologist, entered the command center carrying a data pad. His face was pale with worry. "Commander, I've been studying the psychological profiles of both species. The Krexith see warfare as a mathematical problem. They calculate casualties, resource costs, and time requirements. To them, war is just another form of engineering." "And the Vorthak?" Yuna asked. "Even worse. They process everything through collective logic matrices. Individual sacrifice for the group good is not just acceptable to them, it's automatic. They literally cannot understand why someone would fight against impossible odds." Yuna stared at the star charts showing human space. So few worlds, so few people compared to the vast galactic empires. "So they think we'll just surrender when we see how outmatched we are." "Exactly," Dr. Minho nodded. "Both species have won wars simply by demonstrating superior force. Their enemies see the odds and give up. They expect humans to do the same." Captain Jae Sung cleared his throat. "Commander, we're receiving a broadcast on all emergency frequencies. It's coming from Krexith space. Put it through." Admiral Zekmor's massive face appeared on the main screen. His yellow eyes were cold and certain. "Humans of the outer rim sectors, you have 7 standard days to evacuate your illegal settlements. Pack only personal belongings. Your ships, stations, and infrastructure will become property of the Krexith-Vorthak Alliance. Comply, and you will be relocated to appropriate reservation worlds. Resist and you will be eliminated." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Yuna looked around at her staff. These were good people, trained officers who understood their duty. But they also understood mathematics. 47 ships against 2,000, 12 defenseless colonies against the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy. "Commander," Dr. Minho said quietly, "there is one thing the aliens don't understand about humans." "What's that?" "We've never been very good at math when it comes to impossible odds. Our whole history is full of people who should have surrendered but didn't." Yuna smiled grimly. "Send a message to all colonies and ships. Tell them we reject the ultimatum and start preparing for war. As the command center burst into activity, no one noticed the small communication device hidden among Dr. Minho's equipment. Elder Velthara, far away on Vega Prime, received the transmission and nodded approvingly. The fire was about to be tested. Soon the galaxy would remember why some flames never go out. 3 months had passed since the fall of New Busousan, and the war had spread across 6 human worlds. But something strange was happening. What should have been quick victories were turning into long, bloody campaigns. General Haywan stood in the underground command center on New Sol, studying tactical displays that would have confused any alien strategist. Her plans looked nothing like standard military doctrine. They were messy, unpredictable, and completely insane by galactic standards. "General," reported Major Wu Jin, "the Krexith fleet has arrived. 200 ships just like the others." "Good." Haywan smiled grimly. "Are our surprises ready?" "Every civilian in the colony has their assignment. Even the children know what to do." Above ground, 10-year-old Kyung Min sat in a hidden communication bunker with 5 other kids. Their job was simple: watch the skies and report everything they saw to the defense network. When the first alien ships appeared, Kyung Min pressed his communication button. Big metal dinosaurs in the sky. He reported in the code phrase they had practiced. Lots of them. Coming down near the school. Across the colony, elderly citizens like 70-year-old Mrs. Hua Jung received the signal and began their work. She had spent weeks learning to build explosive devices from kitchen chemicals and spare electronics. Her wrinkled hands moved expertly as she prepared the devices that would turn every building into a potential weapon. 15-year-old Ye Jin climbed into the cockpit of what looked like a simple mining drone. But technician Bon Hua had modified it with weapons and a small explosive charge. Ye Jin was young, but she had learned to pilot in the asteroid fields around New Sol. She knew every rock and hiding place in the system. "Remember," Bon Hua had told her, "you don't have to win. You just have to hurt them enough that they remember you." When the Krexith landing ships descended, they expected to find another farming colony with minimal defenses. Instead, they found a world that had transformed itself into a fortress. The first alien troops to land were met by automatic weapons firing from buildings, sewers, and hidden bunkers. But these weren't military installations. They were homes, schools, and shops that had been turned into combat positions by ordinary people. Commander Rextol, who had survived the Battle of New Busan, led the ground assault. He was beginning to recognize the pattern. "Spread out!" he ordered his warriors. "Check every building. The humans have turned their entire colony into a weapon." But as his troops advanced, they faced something new. Young pilots like Ye Jin struck from the asteroid belt, using mining drones as suicide bombs. Her small craft slammed into a Krexith transport, destroying both vessels in a brilliant explosion. From hidden workshops, technician Bon Hua coordinated teams that had spent months studying captured alien equipment. They couldn't build ships as advanced as the Krexith, but they could take pieces of destroyed alien vessels and make them work with human technology. "The alien shield generators use quantum resonance," Bon Hua explained to his team over the radio. "If we reverse the polarity and connect them to our power grid, we can create defensive barriers around the civilian shelters." It shouldn't have worked. Human technology was centuries behind alien science, but Bon Hua and his engineers had something the aliens lacked: desperation and creativity. They made impossible combinations work through pure stubbornness. In space, Corporal Do-hyun commanded a squad of fighters that had been built from salvaged parts. His ship was part human design, part captured Krexith technology, and part pure improvisation. It shouldn't have been able to fly, but it did. "This is Delta Squadron," he reported to General Haywan. "We're using the debris field from the last battle to hide our approach. The aliens keep trying to use their sensors to find us, but all the floating wreckage is confusing their systems. The Krexith had designed their sensors for clean space battles between organized fleets. They weren't prepared for humans who turned battlefields into junkyards and then used the chaos as camouflage." Admiral Zekmore stood on his flagship, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. "How are we losing ships to mining equipment?" he demanded. "The humans are using unconventional tactics," reported his tactical officer. "They hide in debris fields, use civilian vessels as weapons, and employ technologies that shouldn't be compatible." "What do you mean, shouldn't be compatible?" "Sir, they've somehow attached our shield generators to their primitive power systems. Our engineers say it's impossible, but our sensors show they're doing it anyway. The Vorthak Collective was having similar problems. Their perfect logical systems couldn't process human behavior. Collective Node Prime sent urgent communications to their homeworld. These creatures operate outside all known parameters of rational behavior. Our tactical predictions fail repeatedly. But the most disturbing incident happened during the capture of Captain Su Jin. She had been defending a communication relay when Krexith forces overran her position. Instead of fighting to the death like most humans, she allowed herself to be captured. Intelligence Officer Kextel thought he had finally caught a human who would break under interrogation. He was wrong. "Tell us about your military codes," he demanded, his claws clicking against the metal table. Sujin looked around the holding cell calmly. "What codes?" "We change them every day. Random words picked by children. Your fleet positions. We don't have set positions. Ships move whenever they feel like it." Kextel realized she was studying him as much as he was questioning her. While he focused on interrogation, she was memorizing the layout of the ship, the guard rotations, and the weaknesses in their security systems. "You will tell us what we want to know," he growled. "Maybe," Sujin replied. "But first tell me something. How many Krexith does it take to guard one human prisoner?" The question confused him. "What?" "I count 6 guards outside, plus you. 7 trained warriors to watch 1 captured pilot. That tells me you're more afraid of us than you want to admit." 3 days later, Sujin escaped by overloading the ship's power grid, with a technique she had learned from watching technician Bonhua's modifications. She stole a Krexith shuttle and brought back detailed intelligence about their ship designs and security procedures. Elder Velthara observed the conflict from her hidden sanctuary, making notes in her ancient records. She remembered other species like humans, long extinct now, who had possessed the same dangerous quality. They learned, not just facts and techniques, but how to think like their enemies while remaining themselves. Most species either stayed rigid in their thinking or lost their identity when they adapted. Humans did something far more dangerous. They became more human the more they were challenged. The Nathari Elder activated her secret communication link to Ambassador Teho, who had become the coordinator of humanity's resistance network. "Your people are doing something remarkable," she told him during their coded conversation. "But the aliens are beginning to understand the threat you represent. They will adapt their tactics, or what do you recommend?" Teho asked. "Continue doing what humans have always done," Velthara replied. "Survive by becoming something your enemies never expected." On New Sol, General Haiwan received reports that the alien assault was finally weakening. 6 months of constant fighting had worn down the Krexith forces. More importantly, word was spreading through the alien fleet that humans were not the easy targets they had expected. "General," reported Major Wu Jin, "we're intercepting alien communications. They're requesting reinforcements for the next attack." "How many reinforcements?" "Triple their current force, sir," General Haiwan smiled. "Good. That means they're learning to be afraid." But she also knew the war was far from over. The aliens had vast resources and would keep coming. The question was whether humanity could maintain this level of resistance across dozens of worlds. In the medical bay, Dr. Jin-A treated wounded civilians who had volunteered to fight alongside trained soldiers. An 8-year-old girl named Subin had lost her parents in the first attack, but refused to be evacuated. Instead, she had learned to repair communication equipment and now kept the resistance network running. "Why do you fight?" Dr. Jin-A asked her. Subin looked up with serious eyes. "Because someone has to. And because they said we couldn't." Dr. Jin-A realized she was seeing something that would terrify the aliens if they truly understood it. This wasn't just military resistance. An entire species was transforming itself into something new, something harder and more dangerous than it had been before. The fire wasn't just burning. It was spreading.